We should praise the Chinese government's swift action during this crisis. No, we shouldn't. When China says everything's being taken care of and to not panic, that is precisely the time that people need to take action into their own hands. We'd be foolish to believe the infection figures that come out of the state media from China. The cases are now in the high thousands, which means that this disease, in fact, this coronavirus, is more transmissible than SARS. What's even more worrying is that the death rate from this virus seems to be about double the recovery rate, which means that we don't know the actual percentage or odds of fatality from the coronavirus. And we've been seeing videos spreading like wildfire around social media that shed a bit more of a realistic light on how bad it actually is. I've been in constant contact with people in Wuhan as well as people in affected areas where the government has declared that there are no infected individuals. As I stated in my previous video, the situation is, in fact, much worse than is being reported. Let's look at a timeline of what happened to see how slowly it's been dealt with and how the information was actively suppressed. On December 8th, the first case was reported in Wuhan. On December 30th, the central government sent a team of experts to Wuhan to investigate. On January 1st, the Chinese government arrested 8 people for talking about the virus. The first priority was for the government to crack down on rumors, but the rumors that were being punished were the fact that the virus existed and was a threat to actual people, not the rumors telling people that they would be cured if they drank garlic water. On January 11th, the first death was reported. On January 14th, media who reported on the cases in Wuhan were arrested by police and had their phones and cameras searched for any information regarding the disease. On January 18th, the Wuhan government held a 100,000 person banquet where people all ate from the same dishes, 3 miles from where the virus was confirmed to have come from. This was 2 days after 49 cases had been made public. On January 19th, Chinese officials stated that the disease wasn't very infectious and that there was nothing to worry about. On January 21st, the government held a Chinese New Year celebration where multiple performers fell ill, but the state media regarded them as having great spirit because they didn't stop the performance. On January 22nd, the government asked people in Wuhan to wear masks. However, the rules for mask wearing have just now become an official rule. They have to enforce it through fines because the populace has to be coerced to follow the rules due to lack of education. On January 23rd, the city was quarantined and no one was allowed to leave. However, 5 million people had already left. On the same day, Wuhan airport had closed, but before this, it allowed people to board if they had no symptoms like fever. It's important to know that scientists have been saying that people may be able to spread the disease without showing symptoms, yet people were still allowed to board and leave Wuhan. On January 27th, the mayor of Wuhan said he would step down. Now the central government is being lauded as the only government in the world that could have dealt with this so swiftly. The mayor of Wuhan has been chastised, hung out to dry, and is the sole responsible figure for this cover-up. And the rest of China was now allowed to hate him. He was publicly shamed and is quoted in saying that he has to accept full responsibility for what happened. That's the thing. The government didn't care about the people or the spread of the virus. But I'm not just talking about the Wuhan or Hubei government, I'm talking about the central government. It is now breaking news that the mayor of Wuhan said that Beijing and its rules were partially responsible for this disaster. The central government needed to approve the release of sensitive information about the coronavirus, yet he is the one that bears the brunt of this mistake. On January 29th, the government continues to arrest people that speak out about the Wuhan coronavirus. Watching state media in China pick and choose what information is allowed to trickle out to the rest of the world is like watching someone trying to drain an ocean with a drinking straw. Media on all levels from all countries are now congratulating the Chinese government and its swift efforts to contain the virus, all while ignoring how it ended up so bad in the first place. People are making the assumption that because of China's strongman leadership and its ability to do everything without the hindrance of democratic processes is the reason that it's able to quarantine millions of people within hours and stop the spread of the coronavirus. Trust me, this very system is the reason the virus was allowed to spiral out of control to the level that we see now. The central leadership of China, the CCP, needs to retain control and legitimacy. When you have people dancing around the streets saying that they're not scared and they don't need to wear masks and the government will protect them, you know the level of education and perceived severity on the ground in China. However, when the cases started to get out of control, the CCP had to start worrying about who was going to catch hell for this, and decided that someone's head had to roll. Do not think for 1 second that the hero status of the CCP and how it's dealing with this is well deserved. The corrupt chain of command that China operates on is the very reason that the rest of the world is going to have to clean up this mess. If you look at a flight map, you can actually see all the flights coming out of China. This is a problem in itself. Just because the Wuhan airport was shut down, we still have people leaving from other airports in China to go to countries abroad. The problem with this is that the cases that the Chinese government is declaring are actually the official state figures from state media. And unfortunately, because of checks and balances and citations, that helps influence all global news outlets who have to report on those numbers, and it helps downplay the pandemic. The amount of beds in the hospitals that were already in Wuhan is well enough to be equipped to cover the cases that the Chinese government is declaring. So why are they rushing to build a hospital within hours and then being lauded as the heroes for doing so if it's really not that bad? Everyone's also lauding the government for cracking down on Taobao shops, which is like Chinese eBay. But this is yet again another situation where 7 people get nailed to the cross for an absolute insane amount of people trying to make money off this tragedy and sell fake masks. State media is showing how all of China is coming together to fight the virus, and the strength of Chinese unity through nationalism and government worship is going to solve this catastrophe. Meanwhile, the absolute ineptitude of the government has led to witch hunting people from Hubei province, and locals having to make their own barricades on roads with signs up saying that no outsiders are allowed in. The absolute ineptitude of the government allowed 5 million people from the city escape, while they brag online about how they got out, all while the government fully knew that they were instructed to not allow people to leave. The absolute ineptitude of the government led them to start checking people's temperatures at the Wuhan airport and allowing them to board if they showed no symptoms, despite already knowing that the incubation of the virus was long and asymptomatic people could in fact spread the virus. This is why one-party leadership doesn't work. The government can never be held accountable for anything. When it is forced to show accountability, it will blame a lower power, in this case, the Hubei government. The Hubei government is a part of the CCP. The officials report to Beijing, and I promise you that Beijing knew about this. Hubei was playing the impossible game of hiding just enough and telling just enough, but someone was going to get in trouble either way, just not the top. It's like saying the guy that ran the Auschwitz camps is responsible for everything, and the Nazi party had absolutely nothing to do with it. The language being used in state media is bolstering confidence amongst Chinese people. When they declare how many people have died from the disease, right next to it they also show a number that showed how many people have recovered. Unfortunately, they don't use the word recovered, they use cured, which implies that the Chinese government has a cure to this virus and people shouldn't have to worry about it too much. Now the premier of China, representing the entire government, is going around and giving everyone a good jiao, a good thumbs up, and says, work hard. He is now the expert on virus transmission, and everybody needs to get together and be like, you know what, we're Chinese, we're going to take this down. It reminds me of North Korea level propaganda. It reminds me of Mao era times when he would go inspect farms or steel plants despite having absolutely no idea what he's talking about. And in foreign broadcasts in English from CGTN, which is state media, they just use the same gobbledygook garbage, rattling out CCP jargon and claiming that they have a handle on the situation, when in fact it's clear that they don't.
Hosted by President Xi Jinping, Premier Li Keqiang arrived on Monday in Wuhan to instruct on epidemic control and prevention efforts against the virus. He spoke through a walkie-talkie to an infected patient on video screen, and he met with and also encouraged frontline medical personnel.
There was a brief lull where it looked like the Chinese government would allow its citizens to communicate about this coronavirus a little bit more transparently. It really did seem that way. And yet, they've begun to censor information again, harass people that talk about it again, force doctors into silence while they slave away and deal with countless patients. If the capacity in Wuhan can fully accept this amount of patients, why are they rushing so quickly to build mega hospitals in just days? If it's not that bad, if there's no reason to panic, if we deserve to be silenced and censored just to keep everyone calm, then why is the response so drastic? I promise you The Chinese government is not telling the truth, and that is not fair to Chinese people or citizens of the entire world. The only way that these brave citizens in China, and especially in the city of Wuhan, can actually get legitimate information out to the rest of the world and tell us what's really happening is if they use a VPN. The VPN that I use is NordVPN, who sponsored this video. I use NordVPN for a multitude of reasons, especially when I'm traveling, to make sure that my data is safe. After all, what I do on the internet is literally my livelihood. If you're on unsecured Wi-Fi, or you don't trust the connection, or even just to hide your own internet traffic from your ISP at home, using a VPN is very, very important. If you go to nordvpn.com/lawai86, not only will you get a 70% off a 3-year plan, but also 1 month free if you use the code LAWAI86. Not only will you be protecting your data, but also helping the channel out. Thank you so much. Please join us tomorrow on ADV Podcasts. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for live updates on the coronavirus. We'll be doing a full-length live stream about information that we've been getting firsthand to keep you guys up to date. We'll see you there, and also every other Thursday, we'll see you on the same channel, so don't forget to join us there. Thanks.